someone, keeping me on track. So this is going to be fun in so many ways. And welcome, John. It's good to see you. And Ross, welcome. All right. So I am going to never forget that night. I actually met someone recently that witnessed the exact same meteor that same night. It was absolutely incredible. Now, I am going over to check on my J. Wilkes Facebook page to make sure J. Wilkes Wine Santa Barbara is showing what it should be. And then we'll talk about Dominic. All right. So Wes Hagen. And this is going to be first book. J. Wilkes Wines. No, I don't want that. I want Facebook. All right, I will be back in one shake of a lamb's tail. Too late. All right. Yeah, that would be me off camera. Cool. All right, it's official. I'm back. Excellent. So glad you guys are with me. Let's see. So we got Doug just came in, and we got Marty, and one thing I am going to be doing, which is, of course, is not going to help you guys, but as we launch into the tasting, I'm going to stop and welcome everybody on the J. Wilkes page as well. I am not going to be stopping my content to welcome new people coming onto the feed, and I'm not going to be stopping my content to welcome folks and answer questions in the middle. So what this is going to be, just in case, some people are here for the hangout and some people are, I'm going to separate them a little bit. We're going to do 15 minutes max on whatever wine or wines we're tasting, talk a little bit about the varietal, a little bit about the region, a little bit about the winemaking, and then try to close it at 5:15. Then at 5:15, I'm going to go back, see whoever has come on, like Teresa and Marty and Jane and Phil. Phil, I know that dude. So we're going to stop sort of breaking in the middle of content to welcoming people and answering questions. So there'll be time at the beginning of the of the video podcast for me to answer questions, hang out for a little bit, and Dominic, I will get to your question that you emailed me today. I told him to come in a little early and we could talk about it. Puget Sound, oh, the dogfish, oh, the orcas. Grew up camping out at Hartstein. Fun stuff. See, that's why within 5 minutes I will have someone here helping me to stay on focus. And so as a result tonight, yeah, we're going to do 15 minutes on the wines, and then we're going to do a focused part 1 of viticulture and how to grow grapes. Part 1 is going to be, I'll look at my notes, make sure I'm being accurate. Part 1 is really going to be a little bit about educating yourself about viticulture. Obviously, I'm not going to be your own resource. What books to read, why you should listen to me or why you shouldn't, who should plant a vineyard, who shouldn't plant a vineyard, is your backyard appropriate for wine grapes? And then we're going to talk about some key site specificity, like the fact that you have to be very careful where you get your information when you want to learn how to grow grapes. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the cycle of vine growth. When does a vine wake up? How does it unfold its leaves and start growing without any photosynthesis? How dormancy works? And then a little bit about the early growing season, a little bit about water, a little bit about soil and the vine. We're going to probably make this a 3-part series on viticulture. But today we're going to talk about kind of, do you have the site? Do you have the dirt? Do you have the weather? And do you have the interest in producing wine grapes or just edible grapes in your backyard, or as some people do, grow amazing fruit for birds, squirrels, and raccoons? So that'll basically be what we're talking about today. And looks like we're about 5 minutes until we get going. So again, if you're watching me over on this camera, and this is a very, very professional studio, as you can see. Thank you to producer Chanda for lighting the candles and getting everything so we look nice on camera. I did an earlier today. I guess the videos have had some traction. I'm doing videos for Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. on a thing called Southern Glazer's Wine University. So we're going to be doing some content for them. And we're going to also, and Bob, I responded to your email and let you know when you can expect your wine. I hope you appreciate that. And thank you for your patience. One thing I should do is to make sure that I answer Dominic's question, because it's going to be 5 o'clock before we know it. So Dominic is a grape grower out in New York, and he grows a couple of hybrid vines that are American French hybrids. And then he buys some, I think he buys some Pinot Noir from some fresh fruit from California, specifically Lodi. A little warm for Pinot, but there's probably some sites out there that do a pretty good job. Plus the growers in Lodi are the best in the world for the money. So as a result, what you're going to probably see is his question was, what do you think about mixing Pinot Noir and Baco Noir and Noirette and a couple of other grapes that are very popular in areas where Pinot Noir can't be grown? Why hybridize a grape? Because Pinot Noir grown almost anywhere else besides the exact perfect place is not going to produce a good wine. It's going to produce mildewed raisins. And so as a result, he's growing grapes that he can keep healthy, fresh, and delicious there in New York. And then he was wondering, is it somehow profane? What do you think about blending grapes from the East Coast and grapes from the West Coast? And you might not be surprised, the answer is always yes. Wine says yes, nature says no. Do whatever makes you happy. You know, if you can make a delicious wine from the grapes in your backyard using a little bit of Pinot Noir from Lodi, I think that's absolutely fantastic. You should go ahead and do that. And if you really want my opinion, I would love to receive a sample of said wine, and I will taste it in one of these tastings and give you an absolute, honest appraisal, a generous and happy appraisal of the wine. And then if I have some issues with the wine or you know, some suggestions, I can always email those to you so I don't put them all over the internet. Exciting stuff all the time. Now, if you find that that the Wes Hagen Facebook Live either cuts out, give you the quality or the audio quality that you want, I am streaming the J. Wilkes Wines SB on a better machine with a better camera, and it is actually a little bit better quality as a result that we pay for the J. Wilkes Wines page, J. Wilkes Wines SB for Santa Barbara, and as a commercial site, it basically gets the best feed from the bandwidth that we have. All right, it is 4:58, and we're just about ready for day drinking with Wes Hagen. Hydrate. Let's talk about hydration for 10 seconds. You should always drink 3 times as much water as you drink. So I'm talking about 12 ounces of water for about every alcoholic beverage you consume. For every 1.5 ounces of liquor, for every glass of wine, and for every beer. Beer's not so bad because beer actually comes with a little more water in it. I'd say maybe 4 to 6 ounces of water after you have a beer, but you can't get a little dehydrated doing nothing but drinking beer, as some of us have actually found out, usually at a hot river or something like that. So I want to make sure that you realize one of the most important things I can teach you about day drinking is not only alcohol. It should also be water, and that water is going to be very important. All right, we are 30 seconds away from a brand new format here on Day Drinking with Wes Hagen. My producer, Chanda, is going to help me keep on target. Do you know what kind of noise you're going to make when I go off target? What would you like to use? Would you like 2 glasses? Are you sure I'm going to see you when you wave? Okay, so it will not be an audio version. Let's see, how can I be so thirsty when I drank so much beer last night? That is absolutely true. She's waving at me already. All right, it is 4:59. All right, I'm going to find my trusty corkscrew. You know what, whoops, let's see. My pro setup here falling over. All right, so I'm going to actually give you guys a quick bonus wine while we're starting, and that is going to be the Butter Block. So this is a wine that we make and blend specifically for Morton's Ocean Series, and even though it says Butter Block and you would assume it would be sort of a Rombauer or a butter cookie cutter, it really isn't. It's a Santa Maria Valley appellated wine that you can get at your local Morton's. Remember Morton Steakhouse? It is an American tradition and really an important part of our culture, as well as Landry's, Oceanaire, and all their other properties. So they are still selling food to go, and they are still basically selling wine to go. So you can go to your local open Morton's, Oceanaire, or Landry's and purchase this Butterblock wine and really enjoy it. It's got a little more oak than the J. Wilkes, probably the barrel burner. It's about the same amount of oak as the barrel burner. And it always surprises me. Remember what we said yesterday? We said yesterday that you can't over oak a wine, but you can under wine the oak. One thing that surprises me more and more about Santa Maria Valley Chardonnay, whether it's J. Wilkes, Au Bon Climat, whatever, is sometimes I find out that these wines have a whole lot more oak than I ever anticipated. And the wine seems to soak up the oak and to show more and more character of its own. I'm not a big believer in throwing a bunch of oak at a wine just to make it better. Just like I don't believe that brewers should just throw dry hopping at IPAs because they don't know how to make a proper lager. This is important stuff. This is important stuff to know. And the Butterblock, this is, I've got the 2017 in my glass, although I think the 2018 is also available out there in Landry's. Might be the 17 still though. A little brown butter, a little fig, a little apple, a little pear. Just smells wonderful. It's one of those wines that just, if you didn't know it was Chardonnay, you probably don't drink Chardonnay anymore. And the thing that always excites me about this wine too, the Butterblock, is you would expect that it would be just sort of a soft, marshmallowy finish. This one is impressive with its structure, acidity, and minerality. One thing that I wouldn't expect from a wine called Butterblock. In fact, if I was with people that wanted Rombauer and they couldn't get it, so we ordered Butterblock, I got this wine, I would be absolutely thrilled because there is enough butter that anyone can follow the track. I think, buttery Chardonnays are so important and so popular because people go, oh, I get it. It smells like butter. It's sort of like, it's an obvious element of a wine that people can pick out and feel that they know how to smell and taste wine. But I will say the 2017 Butterblock, it's in a really pretty place. It's room temperature right now. It's still crisp and bright and refreshing. It's got amazing structure. And the greatest thing about it, you put it with some lobster bisque, you put it with a crab cake. Every time you put all that food in your mouth, it's gumming up your papillae of your tongue and your flavor receptors. You go back, take a sip of the wine. It's like a wet nap for your mouth. It's like a finger bowl. Remember finger bowls? If you remember finger bowls, you probably remember Romper Room. All right. That is, I almost got the wave from producer Chanda. So Romper Room started to go off a little bit off the track. So 3 minutes, not bad. 3 minutes on Butterblock. Blended. And that was blended by the Morton sommelier as well as the winemakers at the Miller Family Wine Company. I'm really excited about this. So we're doing J. Wilkes Pinot Noir. How long has it been? 2 weeks. I think this is the second week. It might be a third week. Yeah, it is third week. Cool. So I'm going to open a bottle of 2018 J. Wilkes Pinot Noir, Santa Maria Valley. This one is predominantly Bien Nacido, a little bit of Sierra Madre, a little bit of Gary probably, and a tiny bit of Solomon Hills. So again, J. Wilkes is always a blend of vineyards. We always want to do everything we possibly can to get as many vineyards within an American viticultural area, because it's an AVA-based brand, and produce wines that represent the flavor of a place, not the flavor of a site. What's the difference? Flavor of a site is incredibly specific. Clos Pepe, Clos Vougeot, Tocolon, some of the greatest vineyards in the world. Bien Nacido. That's the flavor of site. Place is a little different. When you take an amalgam of a few different sites, and I like 3 vineyard sites, and I like the sites in the warmer area, cooler area, and maybe one in the middle, one that might have sandy soil, one that might have a little more clay in the soil, maybe some that has a little schist or volcanic soil types as well. I think that's going to be important. All right. I think by now you know how to open a bottle of wine, not only because you drink wine, but you've seen me do it probably 20 days in a row. And we are going to be pouring the 2018 J. Wilkes Pinot Noir. I'm very happy to let you know that I looked up this wine and just last week it received 92 points from the tasting panel, and they said some very nice things about it. So how lucky are we? So 2018, can I get a sense of the color? I would call this a nice heavy garnet, light ruby. Normally Pinot Noirs are described from light ruby, medium ruby, or sort of a dark ruby. Got some color. not because we ameliorated it. This is 100% Pinot Noir. It was night harvested at 23.4 bricks. It was 100% destemmed, which means we took all the stems out of it and left none of the stems in to add the stemmy character of the flavor. It's a little more grip. I don't really like using stem inclusion in my Pinot Noir. It stayed on the skins for 18 days. So very a long maceration, long cool maceration. This was in a stainless steel tank with a combination of pump overs and punch. The wine is fermenting, the skins float, we push them back down to let them continue to be mixed within the developing wine to extract flavor, color, phenolics, and everything that we expect to taste in a red wine. So when we make red wine, we macerate it. We basically, we don't chop it up, but we pull the stems out, leave the grapes and the juice floating together, and that all ferments together. With white wine, we just press off the juice, ferment the white juice either in a barrel or a tank, and generally the white wine never spends any time in fermentation on the skins. If you do treat a white wine like a red wine and chop it up, leave the skins in, and macerate it, you end up with an orange wine, a wine that does have a lot of extract from the skins of white grapes. Not a lot of people love orange wines, the people that do love them. That is not about Pinot Noir, though. This is beautiful, beautiful 2018 Pinot. Why am I stoked about this wine? 2018 was a return to either what I remember as a normal cool vintage in the Santa Maria Valley, Santa Rita Hills. We didn't have one day at our house in 2018 or 2019 during July and August that went over 82 degrees. Average temperature in August for us in Santa Maria Valley is 74 degrees as a high. In fact, I looked it up. The high in August in Santa Maria Valley is cooler than the average low in Austin, Texas, in the same period. In fact, in August, our high temperature is actually lower than Anchorage, Alaska. So, why? Cold water on the Pacific. We're close enough to the water that the water is constantly churning against the violent tectonic plates and stuff that have formed such incredible shorelines in California. And as that water churns up, it brings cold water up from deeper in the water, and that keeps that onshore flow. So it's basically, summer, in San Joaquin and, basically 50 degrees in the Pacific Ocean. They fight. The fog rolls in, summer fights back, fog rolls in again, summer fights back. And it really is a fight. Pinot Noir, too, I think to a certain extent, Santa Rita Hills. It's a fight between the ocean and the sunlight. I like to think Pinot Noir believes that the fight is all about her, because that would be very indicative of who that is. Pinot Noir tends to be a very difficult varietal to grow because you got to find the exact right place to do it. I've been known to be a little bit counterintuitive on in the world to make, but that's because the first one is Pinot Noir. I'm a Pinot Noir specialist, love Chardonnay, love Pinot Blanc, love all the wines we make. But Pinot Noir, is there anything that it can't do? Is there any food it can't match? And if it doesn't match with Pinot, a little butter and truffles, then it does. Pinot Noir also is the greatest food wine in the world, and no one could talk me out of that opinion. A wine that you can make into one of the greatest champagnes or sparkling wines in the world, a wine you can make into a delicious, sessionable rosé, a wine that can be almost as light-bodied as a rosé and almost as dark and rich as a Syrah. It's a pretty special grape, and it can match. And why is it so food-friendly? Well, if you've been listening, you know what I'm going to say. It is the only wine in the world that is both equally structured by tannin, which desiccates our palate, dries it out, and acid, which makes our mouth water. So it's desiccating and making our mouth water simultaneously. It has two different actions of taking fat off of our tongue, because not only removes the fat with alcohol, like all wine, all alcohol, it also removes the fat by virtue of the tannins adhering to the proteins, and it also washes the fat out of your mouth with the acid. So it is the perfect storm of liquid chemicals, of deliciousness, and the chemicals meaning natural chemicals, molecular, I should say, the perfect biology to strip the human tongue from fat. And again, I don't care if you're eating olive oil and avocados as a vegan, or you're basically gnawing on a live lamb's leg. Fat is fat, so it still will gum up your palate. All right. I love this wine because of the baking spice, the big red berry fruits. It's very come hither. That's a nice way of saying slutty, I guess. It definitely draws you into the glass and makes you want to drink it. Darker than the 17. Why? Cooler, longer hang time. We had about the same bud break, probably right around now. Very beginning, late March, early April, probably a little earlier than that. My guess, if I remember correctly, 2018, maybe second week of March. So good dormancy, good bud break. We want bud break to be a little further down the line, so we don't have to worry about the vines being green and leafy during frost events. But we also want hang time. We want those grapes to develop, and they want to be on the vine as long as they possibly can to develop character and flavor. And because I've been used to 15, 16, 17, warm vintage, like here comes the new normal. We're just going to be harvesting Pinot Noir at the end of August, and that's the new normal instead of, in September and sometimes October. Boom, we had 18. And then we had 19, which almost makes it seem like, okay, well, it wasn't just a complete anomaly. It reminds us we actually live in a region 1A area. So now we've got 2018 Pinot Noir. You know what? Santa Barbara County, 2018 Pinot Noir. I would probably buy them without even tasting them. They're so good. They're rich. They have a lot of extract. They have a lot of flavor. They're not heavy in the mouth. They're still that beautiful sort of, that Gleason dancing. It's like heavy, but light on its feet. Like it's got density, it's got concentration, but the wine does not bog your palate down. It's quite delicious in that way. 2018 J. Wilkes Pinot Noir. I think for dinner right now, I would probably take the 15 or the 17. But I would take this as basically like Netflix and chill bottle because it is its own meal. It's got a little bit more going on. I think 17 has a little more minerality, a little more complexity. It's more of a complete wine. Remember we were talking about a round wine that either the Germans say the wine Wein ist rund or Wein ist nicht rund. It's either round or it ain't round. And round doesn't mean soft. It doesn't mean like, a cougar describing Rombauer. It's totally different than that. Round just means it has a beginning, a middle, and a finish, and it basically seems complete. And not round just means that the wine has some little parts sticking out, and it doesn't come together. Coming together might mean mouth-searing acidity. Coming together, if the wine is balanced and it has all of its parts, it can go to certain extremes, especially if those extremes are indicative of the place that the wine is grown and the style that the winemaker is known for. My style that I'm known for is minimal oak and balanced on the side of restraint. I think that's a fair way of saying it. That doesn't mean that I can't enjoy big, rich, ripe, high alcohol wines. Once in a while, I do enjoy those. But generally, I drink wine at table, and that's really what we're talking about. All right, I've got 1 minute to finish up this beautiful wine because at 5:15, we're taking a quick break. I'm going to welcome everyone who's come. We have a slightly different format now. I am not welcoming people and answering questions until after the wine, and then we're going to launch into the content, and then I'm going to do the same thing after the content. We're going to try to keep this on Friday. We're going to try to finish up around 5:45, and then I'll stick around for some questions. And then for Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to try to keep it to like 15 minutes. Okay. Yes, and we're finishing. If anyone has any questions about Pinot Noir, I think we probably are about ready. It is 5 p.m. yet. Absolutely. Hello, Stacy. All right, we're going to close up 2018 Pinot Noir. DD50 gets you a promo code. It should get you either 20 or 30% off, whether you order 6 bottles or a case. You can play around with the discount and the promo code. And I do believe there's still 1 cent shipping per case. So you got to buy a case, but then you get the 1 cent shipping, which will save you some money. Cool. Welcome, Stacy. I'm going to look down real quick and see what's going on. Why, thanks. Phil likes my books. If you will pay special attention, before I do these, I do go back and look at these books and make sure that I put different books out so you can see what my favorite books are and books that I'm thinking about and books that I absolutely love. Yes, Michelle Sheehan. Michelle she was day drinking way earlier. So I'm very proud. Thank you for everyone who's in the alcohol business who needs your support and money right now. You rock. Santa Monica, Fantastic. This Pinot Noir is actually on special at Wally's in Samo. That you can just say, hey, bring me some J. Wilkes Pinot Noir, and they'll probably bring you some. Welcome, welcome. And Phil, I want to put lanes of Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in my house in Vandenberg Village. Thank you, Phil. We always love that. And Dan's here and the rest of the Harley crew. It is 5 p.m. yet. You bet. Phil's here. Bob's here. Michelle Shin came back. Ian. We've got Dan is just making me feel worse that I'm not playing disc golf. Tammy, welcome, welcome. And Josh, one of my favorite prison guard / Baja wine guides. Who else is a prison guard and actually knows probably more about Baja wine than anyone but the late Dr. Ralph Amy? Dominic is in the house. We've got Jolie, welcome back, welcome back. Romper Room, I see Jolie. You probably had that same problem. You didn't see that either. All right, and then we got Mark in the house, and we've got Christy came back because she's a sucker for my punishment. Thank you. And Ruth is here as well, and Barbara. Hey, Barbara, awesome. And Ross Rankin, what's up, Mr. And Eddie's back. Eddie's back. Great pairing for chicken tacos with cheese, guacamole, rice, and beans with a light salsa. I'm going to Pinot Blanc. I'm going to Rosé. I'm going to the Smashberry Rosé. I'm going to go with any light-bodied or aromatic white wine. Be great with Sauvignon Blanc. As long as the guacamole, there's like the guacamole at Super Rica is so damn spicy, I don't think you could drink wine with it. And I would say that as long as the capsaicin load isn't too high in the salsa, I think it's a great wine. You can of a white or a white or a rosé, but certainly sparkling wine would be fantastic. But my brain goes to Pilsner, my brain goes to Bohemia, my brain goes to Negro Modelo. I don't know. We're talking about the wines that exist between Ensenada and Mexicali, 3 incredible valleys that are making some of the best wine on the West Coast. If you don't know some of those Baja wines, there's some that you should actually get to know. And you can always PM our boy Josh, because he will be able to tell you the best wines to drink. He likes the Lucchesa. I think it's Lucchesa. When he brought me a bottle of, I think, the Lucchesa Nebbiolo, and it was absolutely fantastic. All right, so we've taken a break just to welcome everybody. Now the new sort of profile for what we're going to be doing is I'm going to launch into a little bit, the first of probably 3 parts of how to grow grapes, basically either in your backyard, either starting a small vineyard. And you ask yourself, hey, I just want to kind of hang out and drink wine. Is knowing how grapes are grown for wine really going to have any impact on the way that I enjoy wine, drink wine, or live my life? And I have to say, if you take viticulture serious and you take the idea of how wine is grown serious, nothing else except maybe getting into the winery and doing an entire vintage will really feed and inform you as a wine drinker. So this is not just, hey, learn to grow grapes because we need more grapes. We probably don't need a whole lot more grapes. Grapes are probably being pulled out faster than they're being put in right now. And that brings up another thing. The question is, if you want to grow grapes to make wine at home, let me just tell you, you shouldn't. Let me just start this by saying, if you were a client, and this is the exact same conversation I have for $150 an hour, the first meeting that I would have with you would me being trying very strongly to dissuade you from planting a vineyard. Planting a vineyard is a lot like digging a big hole and sticking a bunch of money in it and then covering it up and forgetting where it was. The difference between burying money and starting a vineyard is if everything goes right, 3 to 5 years after you plant the vineyard and spend the money, you might be able to have a drink from your own vineyard, and might. If I look at the money that a lot of my clients have spent on developing vineyards, and some of these vineyards have actually turned out incredibly well, and the wines have been absolutely delicious, whether you're talking about Rancho Santa Margarita down in Montecito, in Glendora, Long Beach, all of these different places. Yes, Long Beach Pinot Noir, Admiral. It smells of sea spray and oil rig. Yeah, not a great place to grow Pinot Noir. But in the end, if you want to make wine, get to know a winemaker and learn how to order and get yourself a half ton to a ton of fruit from a reputable grower. And you might get half a ton of Pinot Noir. If you want to make really great Pinot Noir, you could get a half a ton of Pinot Noir for $3,000. And that'll get you, 300 bottles probably. So you'd be spending about $10 a bottle for really high-end Pinot Noir. If you were going to do Zinfandel and you got to hook up in Lodi or something, you could get 1,000 pounds of grapes for $500. The idea that you are somehow going to be more efficient in growing fruit than a professional viticulturist with a professional vineyard from a professional American viticultural area is going to be tough. The reason we grow grapes, the reason we start a vineyard, the reason why some people are going to be going and trying to do this and growing grapes is because they're crazy. You've traveled the world, you've drank wine for 25 years, you've gone to France, you've gone to Italy, you've gone to Greece. You go to the vineyards, you do vineyard tours, you dream of a vineyard in your backyard. You imagine a vineyard in your backyard. You can't stop thinking about a vineyard in your backyard. And that's the moment. That's the moment. The only true reason to start a vineyard is because you have no other choice. Reminds me of Ramakrishna's ideas about, and I'm about to get a wave, of seeking enlightenment. The only person who should seek enlightenment is the person who does so with their hair on fire. And the only person that should plant a vineyard is the person that basically has no other option because their hair is on fire and they won't be able to live a happy life until they actually began to plant and grow grapes. Okay, so let me take a quick look. We are keeping this a little tighter, so I did make a little extra notes. I do like going off the cuff and going without a net here, but I want to make sure. First of all, why should you even listen to me? What's my viticultural credibility? Well, I've been a wine grape grower for about 25 years. I was the grower of the year for the Central Coast Wine Growers in 2001 and 2002. I've written and researched and had approved 3 separate American viticultural areas, which is, I'm the only winemaker in the United States who can say that. And I've also written, researched, and had perfected a 4th AVA, Alisos Canyon, that will hopefully be approved this year because I need the money. And then we also have the reason, well, I was at Clopepi with my wife. I was there a little longer than she was, but I was there for about 20 years, and I was the vineyard manager from 1996 to 2015. So almost, just about 20 years as vineyard manager at Clopepi, and then we elevated a little 24-acre vineyard from absolute obscurity to being listed as in most top 20 domestic Pinot Noir lists, at least in California, is one of the best. So we're really lucky about that. So I've been growing grapes for, I guess now most of my life, and I've been making wine for about most of my life. So as far as viticulture goes, I will give you the straight dope because basically I know that I don't need any more fruit. We don't need any more fruit in California. We've got plenty of what we need. But the question is, do you have someplace special to grow grapes? And I will say, after now probably knocked a little of the stuffing out of you when you wanted to plant a vineyard in your backyard. First of all, you don't have to plant a vineyard. You can plant a couple vines and run them up a pergola so they give you shade during the summer months, and that's exactly what the ancient Egyptians did. Is as important as the vineyard was for their production of wine, it was also incredibly important to provide shade on hot summer days. That really, in the end, when you think about a vineyard in your backyard, you should ask yourself whether you think you can make better wine that you'll love and wine of a quality that you'll be proud to drink and proud to show to your friends. Next up, I want to give a positive view of United States home viticulturists, and that is you are the scouts. You are so important. You're the scouts for the next important American viticultural areas. So it's going to always be some crazy Italian, some crazy German, some crazy Spaniard, or some crazy American who's going to go into a region where no one's grown grapes before. And with a little bit of knowledge, science, but a little bit of a word I'm not a huge fan of is faith, but going in and believing that you can grow great grapes and putting yourself out there saying there's no one else has tried to grow grapes here, so I'm going to prove everyone wrong. That is special. So if you do choose to grow grapes in your backyard, whether it's Noirettes in upstate or in New York, or Pinot Noir in Kentucky, I wouldn't do it. But man, if you can't sleep until you grow Pinot Noir in Kentucky, knock yourself out. That sounds like fun. So you are the vanguard for the future of American viticulture. Time to do it. How long does it take? Do I have time to grow grapes in my backyard? If you want to grow an acre, I like to use an acre of grapevines, which if you if you said, oh, we're going to put 8 feet between the rows and 4 feet between the vines, that would be 1,261 vines. 1,261 vines is a reasonable amount for one full-time worker working 40 to 48 hours a week to promote and complete next to perfect viticulture on that acre. Does that mean if you have 100 acres, you need 100 people? No, because once you get a bigger vineyard, you start to mechanize and you have a better tractor and you have better stuff. Now, if you can mechanize, if you can get an electric sprayer, if you can get an ATV, if you can get even some pro equipment, the more pro equipment you have, the less time you have to do. Now, what if I want to watch 2 football games a weekend, and I'll give up 1 day a weekend, and I'll do 10 hours outside of Saturday? How many vines can I grow? Well, I would say less than 500. You also need to realize that about, let's see, 1261, if we get 2 times, we go down to 5. I like 400 to 500 vines to get a barrel of wine. And it's really important to grow wine to also integrate your brain as a winemaker. The highest increase in quality that I can suggest for guys like Dominic and other people who are interested in growing grapes and making wine is to have an ample enough to make an entire 55-gallon, 225-liter barrel. That is insanely important. If you can make great wine in a little 5-gallon glass carboy or even 1-gallon jugs or something, like from scratch, you're a better winemaker than I am. I'm not very good at keeping wine and carboy healthy. Maybe it's because it's always the wine in the side of the winery and it's not my main wine. It's the wine to top up my barrels. But I've gotten a little bit better at it. But finally, I would say what I recognized as a young winemaker is if I could make a full barrel of wine, the wine was 5 times better than making less than a full barrel of wine. So if you really want to make the best wine you can, I would try to either suggest you grow 100 backyard, your buddy grows 100 vines in your backyard, his buddy grows 100. So you can bring all those together, put them all together, and make at least 1 barrel. Now, 500 vines is a lot for most people's backyard. So some people are just going to grow it for, just to see it, hopefully get a little fruit out of it. You'll be very disappointed probably when it mildews, and if it doesn't mildew, you'll be very disappointed when the raccoons come and eat it. Remember, grapes are a dispersal mechanism for seed, and they're the most delicious thing in the world. Grapes produce the highest amount of disaccharide fermentable sugar of any fruit on the planet Earth. So why are grapes and wine so important? It's because you can make the highest alcohol beverage on the planet Earth without a still. So we talked a little bit about why you should listen to me, basically why you shouldn't plant a vineyard, why maybe you should, and then I'm going to give you a couple books to read. So if you are going to do this, you're going to go ahead and do it. And plus, if you read these books, they will inform your understanding of wine in a way that will be guaranteed profound. Plus, we can have a conversation about these books because I read them all the time, and I love talking about them. The first one is Dr. Richard Smart. Dr. Richard Smart, Sunlight into Wine. It looks like a magazine and it costs $75. So you're going to be a little bummed. But once you have it, it's got checklists and exercises, and it will teach you canopy management. We're not going to talk a lot about canopy management. That's going to be in part 2. It's basically how to manipulate the leaves and the shoots and the clusters to grow the best wine possible. But realize that Dr. Richard Smart did for canopy management what Louis Pasteur did for fermentation science. Pre-Pasteur, we had no clue how fermentation worked, and really pre-Smart, it was really hit and miss. So Dr. Richard Smart, Sunlight into Wine. Second book is produced by the University of California, and it's called Grape, I want to make sure I get this right, Grape Pest Management. And that's a book. And it's less expensive than the magazine. It's got lots of good pictures of all the insects and diseases. And it's got hundreds of pictures of diseased grapevines. So when you're, oh, Andrew, what's up, dude? Sorry, I just got the look. That basically we have that basically I sort of lost my train of thought. Damn you, Andrew. Damn you, Wes. Damn you, Brain. Grape Pest Management has tons of pictures of diseased grapevines. So when you see on your vine that has weird colors and interveinal chlorosis, you can learn what interveinal chlorosis is. How fun is that? You can look up the basically the leaf problem and try to find whether you have Pierce's disease, leaf roll, or young vine decline. And I hope basically you have no diseases. That would be fantastic. And then the last book isn't even a book, and it's free. And you can go to winemakermag.com, and you can check out my blog from about 7-10 years ago. It was called A Year in the Vineyard, and I did I think I also did a small video, but I did a blog post with pictures every week for an entire year in the vineyard to describe everything we did in the vineyard and everything we planned, and then some information about harvest and, of course, making the wine. So A Year in the Vineyard, Winemaker Magazine out of Vermont. It's a very beautiful place. So we've got the books, we've got your admonitions, we've got your warnings, and we've got your blessings. Go out there and grow grapes in areas that have never been grown. Realize you're in for something that will change your life. It's a lot of work to do it right. And if you neglect it, it will make you very sad. So do consider that. All right, so let's talk about your backyard. How do you know if you have a backyard that is amenable for grape production? First thing I would say is the easiest way to do it is find out where the nearest delicious wine is grown to your house. How many miles? So is it 100 miles to the nearest winery where they're making wine that you love to drink? If it's more than 100 miles and you want a guarantee of quality, you might not live in an area that would be amenable to you unless you want to be one of those vanguards, unless you want to be one of those progenitors, unless you want to be, the Cesare Mondavi, unless you want to be the David Lett, unless you want to be the Dagenot. Sounds great, right? But you're going to spend a lot of money, and you might end up with plonk, or you might not even end up with a place where you can grow grapes at all. Next thing you want to do, so if you think you're in an area that might have some viticultural feasibility, you want to test your soil and your water. And you're going to want to follow, and if you're going to do this, testing soil or water, you're more than welcome to reach out to me and I can help you with the protocol. But in general, I would go to a website like FGL, Fruit Growers Laboratory Incorporated, or look up agricultural if you want someone to do it locally, or you can even look at the extension program of your local state university that sometimes will help you out. A lot of times, I'm going to introduce you to a phrase that will save you thousands of dollars from your local state university. Most agricultural states that grow some crop, which is almost all the states in the United States, they pay some guys at their state universities to do nothing but travel to farms and help the farmers and take what they learn back to the classroom to teach the new generation. So ag extension, the people that actually exploit the ag extension, they get so much value, it's ridiculous, because everybody else wants to think, have everyone think that they know what they're doing. They don't, or maybe they do if they're multi-generational. Ask for help, get the information, understand, because until you've done this for 20 years, you're not going to get the rhythm. The rhythm of the year, the rhythm of bud break, the rhythm of flowering, the rhythm of the vine growing, the rhythm of veraison, the when to pick, all that stuff. It really takes a lot of time. So really do rely on the people. And this brings up the next thing. Say there is a vineyard within 100 miles of your house that grows great wine. It doesn't mean you're going to grow great wine. If it's 20 degrees hotter or cooler, it might not matter. But what I like to do is find the nearest winery or vineyard, specifically vineyard in this context, find who is growing the best wine, get a little information, poke around a little bit, find out what they love. Do they love champagne? Do they love scotch? Do they love Japanese whiskey? Most winemakers love beer and love spirits. So if you brought most winemakers a great bottle of single malt scotch, they are not going to be bummed. And this is really my suggestion. And then throw booze at them until you're their best friend. So really nice booze, take them to dinner, bring them a steak. Obviously not right now, but when things go back to a sense of normalcy, I can imagine proper 12-foot social distancing out in the vineyard and getting a little safe thing. But stay home and wash your damn hands. But all this really matters is to find the experts and to ply them for what they know. For instance, I like beer. So if you guys, and money. So if you need a viticultural consultant, we can talk about that. And then of course, doing your soil study, make sure you follow their recommendations. Generally, the top 18 inches or 12 to 18 inches of the soil don't matter. I like to take the first soil sample from between like 9 and 18 inches and a nice even sample from there in a bag. Make sure to write on the bag, a nice big gallon Ziploc bag. They have that little white label. You can write vineyard, date, depth, and which site. And then take one a little deeper, maybe 18 to 36 inches. And then the 36 to 48 inches, you almost need either a teenager with a strong back and a hell of a shovel or a backhoe. But if you can get that 36 to 48 inches, that's really in a vine's maturity where it's doing its major business. A grapevine will go down 1 foot per year in the soil profile unless it has something that stops it. With nice sandy loam soil and no restrictive layers, I think I want to say that the world record for root depth is 120 feet in Australia. So vines can really root, but they also can be slowed down and stopped by various sort of profiles in the soil. So there you go. So the soil needs to be tested, and then a good soil lab will send you back a soil sample report that will have red, yellow, and green bars to show, all right, your potassium, cool. You know, your phosphorus, a little low. Nitrogen, probably too high. Micronutrients, all this stuff really matters. And then you have to ask yourself, do any of the red or any of the deficient or too much of those nutrients make it a deal breaker? And that's where sometimes you have to bring in a consultant. But a lot of times you can pay an extra $50 on your soil reports, and they will send you recommendations. And agriculture is a science, and we've been around long enough that we know how to fix stuff. So if your soil has a problem, but the weather is still amenable to grow grapes, we can probably fix your soil with amendments. Home winemaking, may not want to get that deep into it, but that's kind of an idea. So everything about grapes, this is kind of the more difficult thing to talk about viticulture in a format like this. And here's the deal. Almost impossible to talk about viticulture without knowing where exactly we're talking about and getting specific to that exact site. The way that you grow grapes in Ithaca or in Sheldrake Point in the Finger Lakes is going to be a hell of a lot different than the way you're going to be growing grapes down in the Valle de Guadalupe in Mexico. So you have to have site specificity, and you have to have excellent advice and referrals and references that will let you know what's going on with your local site. So you need to know, for instance, a little weather station would be really important for you to have. So you can say, okay, in a perfect world, you want 2 years before you even plant the vineyard. You want 2 years of climate data, high and low temperatures, average data, rainfall totals, wind. And then you also want those 2 years, I like to say, how are you going to anticipate how big your vines are going to be? Because when you don't know, are your vines going to grow this big every year? Or they're going to grow 25 feet? Because I've seen both. And then the question is, that is going to dictate what trellising you install to harness the vigor to make the best wine. If your vines only grow, your shoots only grow this big, you can just do a little, basically just a head train, spur train vine without any posts at all. The vine will just grow very small, like a little goblet, and will produce a little fruit each year. If you're getting 20 feet of cane growth every year, you're going to need to harness that by making a quadrilateral system that instead of maybe 10 buds that you leave each year at pruning on the little head prune vine that grows so small, the huge vine, we want to say, hey, if you've got a V12, make me some wine. So we're going to harness and spread that vigor out through as much square footage in the canopy so it can absorb sunlight and produce fruit. We might have to cut a little fruit off the vine, so maybe the fruit will be a little more concentrated. We don't want to make 10 tons per acre. Sounds great when we think about how much wine that would be, but when the wine was dilute and uninteresting, I don't think it would be quite as important. Very important too. And the way that I would recommend trying to understand how vine vigor is going to be affected is just buy a grapevine. Make sure it's Vitis vinifera. Don't get a hybrid or an American plant unless you're going to want to plant hybrids. Maybe buy one vinifera and one hybrid vine from a nursery. Find a place, stick them in the ground, put a little water on them every few weeks, and see how they grow. And at the end of the year, see how, plant them about now. Or after the last frost, after the last big freeze, you can, put that vine in the ground, put some dirt on top so it has to break through the dirt, so it's a little bit protected in there, and then measure the actual vigor. So I would say 1 to 3 feet is low vigor, 3 to 8 feet is medium vigor, and over 8 feet would be high vigor. And then you can look up the trellising for each type of vigor in the vineyard. Bam, you've got the idea. You know what to expect. You have a real-time vine that's growing in the ground and producing a level of, and then, probably in the last part of this, we'll talk about, watering and fertilization and all that and how we can change the vigor of the vine. But for now, we want to grow honest wine without fertilizer if possible. So let's talk a little bit about the cycle of vine growth. And actually, I'm going to cut us off at the cycle of wine growth. We're going to talk a little bit about this, and then we'll go on with water, soil, and the vine, and choosing a site and varietal for part 2. So the cycle of vine growth. So what I'm going to do is just tell you the quick story of 1 year in a vine's life, and we're going to do this in 4 minutes or less. So a grapevine goes dormant because it's Transcaucasia, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. So then in that area, it gets damn cold in the winter. It gets so cold that it would kill an evergreen plant. If a plant was green, it gets cold enough, bam, that vine dies. But it rarely gets under maybe 10 degrees in Transcaucasia, between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. So the grapevine developed there and was domesticated about 10,000 years ago, and now we're talking about domesticated vines. So in that region, it gets about 20 to 25 to 32 inches of rain on average. So that's basically how much water a grapevine needs. Is it's used to, in its natural habitat, getting at least 20 to 25 inches of rain per year. So I say if you want to dry farm your vineyard and you don't get 25 inches of rain during the growing season, 25 inches basically throughout the year would probably be ample enough to, on average, to do a dry farm vineyard. And the irrigation of the vineyard becomes very expensive. So you basically have a grapevine in dormancy, and it goes woody and gets very hard and has no growth, and everything is basically, everything is fallen off the vine, and the vine has these little kind of thorny buds on them, and the thorny buds protect themselves from the cold down to about 0 degrees. Now, when the soil, now these little buds during dormancy need 250 hours at 45 degrees or less, non-sequential, to become fruitful. If you don't get the chilling requirement during dormancy in a grapevine, the grapevines will not produce fruit, or they will slowly lose their fruitfulness and basically produce not enough fruit to be commercially viable. So you need at least 250 hours a year during, say, between October, say November and April, but 250 hours non-sequential under 45 degrees for you to successfully grow wine grapes. You should probably be between the 30th and 50th parallel of latitude, and your average temperature where you live should be between 10 and 20 degrees Celsius. Now, the vine wakes up. How in the world does leaves begin to open and grow without photosynthesis? Because as far as I know, as an amateur botanist, you cannot basically photosynthesize with bare wood. So what happens is whatever energy is left at the end of last year's growth, when the vine goes dormant, it stores it as arginine down in its taproot and in its trunk. And when the temperature of the soil reaches 50 degrees at medium root level, which is pretty deep, I'd say on average maybe 2 to 3 feet deep in the soil. So if it gets really hot, it's probably not going to cause bud break because the soil down at 2 feet is still cold. So when the soil at root level reaches 50 degrees, the grapevine opens up and basically uses that arginine to push the xylem fluid through the vine, pressurize the vine, and then force the buds to open and the leaves to unfurl. Now, about 3 weeks after bud break, the leaves have unfurled to the point where the arginine and the nitrate nitrogen is all gone from last year. The vine has woken up and blossomed, and then photosynthesis begins making carbohydrates. What does the carbohydrates do? The carbohydrates cause the shoots to grow. And as the shoots grow, the vine continues to produce carbohydrates for the growth of shoots until the vine either realizes it's too late in the year and I better start worrying about the fruit and ripening it, or it reaches the point where it has between 12 and 15 leaves per cluster. At that point, as long as the vine is healthy and there's not too much nitrogen left over from the growth pattern, the vine changes its entire physiology from a growth period to a fruit ripening period. And that fruit ripening period means basically one entire vein valve of the vine shuts and a whole new one opens, and the vine's plumbing completely reacts to the difference, and it stops growth. It stops it stops using photosynthesis for production of carbohydrates and begins feeding the grapes sugar and increasing the cell reproduction in the grape. And then that grape slowly grows. It goes into a lag phase, and then the grapes get, they stay about pea size for a while, and they're hard and green. Even Cabernet Sauvignon, even Pinot Noir, the grapes all start really hard and green and pea size, and then the clusters begin to sort of swell up in July and August. And then usually around August, we start seeing the grapes start changing color. Hard and green to soft and gold in Chardonnay and white grapes, and then hard and green to soft purple and black in red grapes. Or you could end up with a gray cluster like gray Riesling or something like that, or Gewürztraminer, or some of those grapes have some interesting colors. And that is basically the cycle of vine growth. And then at the end, as soon as all the clusters are either clipped or eaten or even just mummify on the vine because they weren't picked or they weren't taken off, the vine recognizes that, damn, it's getting cold again. And if I don't drop all my leaves, they're going to die. I'm going to lose all the nutrients that I used to produce those leaves. So the vine sucks back all of its sort of energy. It sucks back all of its leftover nitrate nitrogen, puts it into arginine form down into the taproot, and wait for next year in bud break. So that's the whole year. All right, so that was 2 minutes long, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. You guys now know basically the life cycle of a grapevine, and next time we can talk about how we can manipulate that cycle for increased quality of the production of wine. And knowing this is really actually quite important. Okay, I'm going to go first out and about here and make sure if anyone came in while I was talking my head off. Said hello to Ruth and Dan and Mr. Carbone. Hello, Fred. Josh Niermeyer. Yes. All right. Josh is retired from the jail. Oh, he's only doing patrol. Good to know. All right, Bob. The Pinot Noir. I'm a huge fan of main go-to yeast is called RC212. And it's a Burgundian isolate. What does that mean? It means that someone claims that this form of Saccharomyces cerevisiae yeast, this clone, if you want to call it, was found in Burgundy. So it's been used in Burgundy for a long, long time to produce wine. It was the yeast given to me by my sort of teacher and guru, Brian Babcock, in 1996, when it was the one of the only yeasts that we used for Pinot Noir. But then my favorite Pinot Noir that we made that year at Babcock, I do believe we used Assmanshausen. And Assmanshausen, which is also known as AMH, my wife was looking at me because she also knows Assmanshausen has another nickname, which I can't really say probably on the air because this is a family show. And I never know how close your kids are to the computer. So I always watching. There's also, so Assmanshausen is a yeast. There's also a Swiss yeast. Oh, what's that stuff? So Assmanshausen is German. There's a Swiss yeast called, it's got a really funny German name, but I don't use it all that much. The other yeast I really like is Barolo 97, BRL 97. Wait, there's it. Saccharomyces cerevisiae. It makes great Pinot Noir. Those are the three yeasts that I used with my wife Chanda. Hi, Chanda. At Clos Pepe for basically every Pinot Noir we ever made. I think we might have used a couple other yeasts for very small lots to try them. I think there was a yeast called Clos. And of course, we had to try a yeast called Clos. Made a good one, though. Okay, so right on down the line. No problem. I worked a little with Wally and Nancy Rich today to get them some 17 Pinot Noir out near Chino and Chino Hills. So I'm glad that worked out. And Phil enjoying the Ampelos 13 Rosé of Syrah. Wonderful. That's cool that they're making the San Ynez Valley Rosé of Syrah. I thought all that they did was cool stuff. Might you do a tour down south? Of course. We are in 46 states. Of course, I'm not traveling. I'm supposed to be in Oklahoma right now, and I've already missed my trip. I've already missed a bunch of trips, and I'm missing Jersey, and I'm missing Philadelphia, and I'm missing about 7 states in about 5 weeks. So, obviously, I'm not going to travel until it's safe. But yes, and by the South, Michelle, Are you talking about Southern California, or are you going to be talking more about the southern United States? And I'll come back to that. And Josh, am I saying Lacusa, right? Lacusa? Valle de Agruya, Valle de San Antonio, San Vicente, Ojos Negros. Santo Tomas, that is a historic winery. I had a calendar in my room from like the 60s or the 50s from Santo Tomas. Yes, and Dominic agrees with me that farming is hard. So if you're going to farm grapes in your backyard, you better get ready to do some work. That's right, Marla. The way you end up with a small fortune is you start with a large fortune in the wine industry. Oh, nice. Ian McKenzie's daughter, who's a brilliant English major, which means you're going to teach or you're going to write failed novels, or you're going to become, a winemaker. Love me some English majors, and we never stop teaching. I retired early from a very lucrative career in public education as a high school English teacher, and it basically drove me to drink, and I went pro, and here I am today. It really worked out. What a bummer that I make like 3 times more selling wine than I ever did, teaching kids. I think what we're finding out in this whole COVID stuff is who really matters to us in this culture and in this society. And I hope, having to teach your damn kids at home is teaching you something, because I think I saw a pretty cute picture of a elementary school bulletin board out in front of us, an elementary school. I think it was in Texas, and it said, "Tag, you're it. Love, teachers." So, yeah, teaching definitely will take a lot out of you. If you teach a proper day, at the end of that day, you should feel like you are basically hung over and you just got whacked in the head with a 2x4, because there's nothing that requires as much effort than 8 hours of real classroom teaching. All right, so we've got Ian, we got Jane. Welcome. Thank you for your comment, Jane. Appreciate that. Excellent. Rick. Yes, that's a really good point. Bulk wine right now is huge, and you can buy bulk wine. The problem is normally people don't want to make the best bulk wine, like my company. Unless you want to go 1,000 gallons or even more. But if you know a bunch of people who love wine, probably the best way, I never even thought about this, Rick, that's brilliant, is get into the bulk wine market. You can get like really, really good Cabernet for between $12 and $15 a gallon. And remember, that's $3 a bottle. So you can take your bulk wine, which you would have to have delivered in a tank, and then you would have maybe 5 or 10 of your friends come over with a pallet of glass, and you would bottle that, and they will finish the wine for you. So you don't have to worry about, bottleable. You bottle it, throw a cork in it, slap a label on it with the bottle and the cork and the label. You're talking maybe $4.50 a bottle for wine that would normally probably be $20 to $25 on the market. So yeah, I mean, there's more than one way to grow wine. There's no reason why, with the amount of wine out in the market right now, that can't happen. Yes, Fe Ciega, blind faith. Thank you, Joseph, for being here. Joseph also helped make the banner that advertises us, and we had a great conversation. I learned a lot about the history of the Marine Corps today. And Andrew, I'm so stoked you're here, brother. I was so stoked to see you that you completely made me lose my train of thought. Okay, so Dominic is getting really good yield off his vines. He has 200 vines and he's getting 2,000 pounds a year, 10 pounds per vine. I have never had that kind of yields in vineyards that I produce. Clos Pepe would generally produce 2.5 to 3 pounds per plant, or 1.5 tons to maximum maybe 2 tons per acre. So that's a very good yield. All right. Yep, and Fred tells me that he read my Year in the Vineyard and he recommends it and it doesn't suck. So thank you. Dan says that a vineyard he was looking at, and I know which vineyard you're talking about, in the Russian River averages about 2.9 tons per acre. So I would say Pinot Noir, loves 3 tons per acre or less. I don't think if you had 3.1 tons per acre, it would be a deal breaker. But over 3 tons per acre, I think a Pinot Noir vineyard makes a different wine than under 3 tons per acre. Chardonnay, I'd put that number closer to 5 to 6 tons per acre. I think you can push quite a bit of tonnage out of Chardonnay and still make amazing wine. All right, and Michelle's taking notes. Hopefully I did a good job of dissuading you from wasting your money, but making you excited about the potential that if there's nothing you can do to stop yourself from planting a vineyard, that you know that you have resources to do so. Okay. Yes, Dominic. RC212. There you go. Oklahoma. Yes, native. I just finished Flowers of the Desert Moon, the story about the Osage murders in Oklahoma. And man, that was a sad story. I definitely recommend it. I listened to it on Books on Tape, so I can't remember exactly the name of the book, but it's like Flowers of the Blood Moon or Flowers of the Moon. If you don't know about the Osage murders in the 1910s, 1920s in Oklahoma, it's one of the saddest stories in the history, but it gave us the FBI. For good or for bad, the FBI really began, the first case they ever were involved in was the Osage Indian murders for their oil rights back in around the same time when insulin was developed, around 1919. And yes, I do spend time in Tulsa. In fact, I do spend time in Tulsa, and I do spend time in Oklahoma City. And Tulsa, I love prairie brewing, so I spend a lot of time in Tulsa. And I always tell people, if you've never been to Tulsa, Tulsa sort of is to Oklahoma maybe what Austin is to Texas. It's probably not quite as weird, but it's definitely, there's a lot of cool stuff bubbling up in Tulsa. And I felt very, very cool when I was in Tulsa. So it's one place I'm looking forward to getting back. Lakusa. Winemakers and teachers. Yes, people that will always drink coffee in the morning and wine at night. Marcus Hansen, I hope everything is thawing out in Minnesota. I won't put you too much on the spot to see if you mailed out my beer. I have this weakness for Minnesota beer. So my friend Marcus, who helps run Small Lots, our distributor, and probably should be careful saying this, but one of my favorite distributors by far in the United States, Small Lots Wines in Minnesota, North Dakota, and a little bit in Wisconsin. It's funny, you got to be careful when you sell wine in Wisconsin one day and then you go and sell wine in Minnesota the next day, especially when that day is a day after the Green Bay Packers played the Vikings. You definitely want to be careful. Vince. Yeah, Vince. And if you don't know Vince, he's an amazing dude. You should definitely know Vince. Yeah, I like I like the bulk wine idea. He says, there should be a way that clubs can get together. And I just came up with a great business idea. And instead of copywriting, I'm just going to throw it out to you guys. Buy an old bottling line, refurbish it, buy the glass, and you would set up a system where people would choose which bulk wine by sample, because you can taste the bulk wine before you buy it. Obviously, they'll send you samples. In fact, if you don't want, you can play that game. If you really out of wine, you can always contact a bulk wine brokerage and ask for samples. I still have a bunch of bulk wine samples laying around, and once in a while I just say, I might as well drink that. So it can go either way, but get some samples, taste them, and then I would have a bottling line. I would buy the glass, the corks, work with you guys on the labels, and then I would basically do custom bottling where you guys would come in, choose a wine, blend a wine, bottle the wine, and then I'd make 10 on your merry way with a couple pallets of wine and give them to your friends. It'd be lovely. It's cool. I like the idea. Awesome. Well, looks like we're going to end here. We managed to do an hour. We stayed right on schedule, pretty much. 2 minutes late on the wine stuff, but we cut that off. So tomorrow, I think, let me see. The calendar should be up, so you guys should be able to see what wine we're tasting. I want to say we might be tasting Viognier tomorrow. So tomorrow is Thursday already. Wow. Time flies when you ain't going anywhere. Oddly, when you guys keep me company. So I'm pretty sure we're doing Viognier tomorrow, but the calendar is up. We are pushing to make sure that when people are ordering wine, especially to order the wine so they can taste it alongside us and right along with us, that we can get those wines out. But I want to make sure that I tell you guys that I don't want to overpromise. FedEx has basically been contacting us and say they are so slammed that they're really understanding that they may need to show their people a little more care and, not to, hire more people, make sure that there's enough people out there and they're being safe. It's slowing down just a little bit right now because obviously online orders are going crazy. And we have increased our direct to consumer sales in the last month by 1,000%. So thank you guys, all you guys, for going out there and making wine or buying wine and drinking wine. I appreciate that. That's all well and good. So tune in tomorrow. It's going to be a really quick show. It's going to be a 15-minute presentation. Then we're going to hang out and chat. And then let's see, what else? Buy a bunch of 2018 J. Wilkes Pinot Noir. Your coupon code or your promo code on millerfamilywines.com or jwilkes.com is DD50, DD50, day drinking 50. 50% off all the wines except J. Wilkes. You get at least 20% off J. Wilkes. You might even get 30% off if you buy a case. And 1 cent shipping should still be active, but I put in a request to make sure. Someone said they didn't see it. One thing that a couple people said is they didn't see the 1 cent shipping show up immediately in their cart, but once they got a receipt, the 1 cent shipping was changed and applied before their card was checked. So I'll get you a definitive answer on that. It'll be in the comments and in my presentation tomorrow. And as always, Rick, welcome. And Barbara, thank you. As always, if you have questions, subjects, comments, let me know. I do read every comment that people post on these, and really stoked to have you guys here. Looking forward to tasting and maybe talking about some Viognier tomorrow, or whatever we taste. We'll have some fun. It'll be a quick one. Tomorrow we'll be pretty on time. So if you wanted to invite some friends that might not enjoy my off subject commentary as much, but really want to learn about Viognier, tomorrow might be a great opportunity for you guys to have a viewing party. If you didn't know, when you're watching these Facebook Live, you can always click on watch as a group and bring some of your friends in as well. That would be fantastic. Cool. If you missed any part of this, start at the beginning. And again, we are changing our format. First 15 minutes will be on one single wine without any breaks, introductions, stopping to welcome people or answering questions. We'll take a little break in between 5:15 to about 5:20, or maybe no later than that. Answer some questions. Welcome everyone who's come on to watch, and then bam, we're right into our content on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays we're just talking about one wine and answering some questions, and then I'm still down for Saturday hangout. Saturday we'll play live, and I won't bring. There'll be 100% just conversation, and I won't have anything specific to sell you. Julie, so welcome. And Christy, I'm sorry you came in late, but obviously we're just about finishing up. You're going to be able to see this whole thing as soon as I publish it. And yes, very glad I did some actual professional video. You might notice I actually shaved today. I actually wore a collar for the first time. Today is day 29 of day 29 of our self-imposed sort of a shelter in place. And remember, shelter in place, can't spell sip without it. So let's all have a sip. Let's all take care of us. And as always, we'll finish with the idea that we show 100% more compassion in our lives. We show 100% more kindness. We know everyone is struggling and everyone's having a hard time. So smile to someone who might not have had someone smile to them. Say hello to your neighbors. Reach out to someone who might not have the support system that you do. Do something kind for someone at least once a day. And find a way to make this world a better place. It's an amazing world, and I'm stoked with every breath I have in it. So everyone, take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. Take your vitamins. Stay hydrated. And whatever you do, don't get stuck at home without any wine at all. All right. Everyone have a great day and a great night. And thank you for being here and day drinking with Wes Hagen. Cheers, everybody. Okay.
Well, hey, everybody. It's Wes Hagen.